And I don't think they see yet, but they are eventually going to come around to the fact that Disney is not going to win this fight against Florida. They're just not. And it's going to cost them significantly more than what they have up to this point to operate that park. And that means Disney can do one of two things. They can either absorb those expenses themselves from their operating income at present, or they can raise prices across the board at Disney Parks and Experience, which they already have to a large degree. But part of that has been to the fact that Disney thinks that, again, their parks and experiences are, to a degree, completely elastic, which we covered in a video, price elasticity. I think they're reaching a point where they're going to find out that they're not. They're more inelastic than they're thinking, and I think that's going to accelerate tremendously. Think about this. By the time these court cases are settled, and it's very possible that they could go on for the next year or two with appeals processes and things like this, right about the time they settle and we find out certainly definitively that they have no standing in this and there's nothing that the federal court can do for them, that's right about the time that Epic Universe is going to open.
Yes. And I drive by there so many times. It's so exciting seeing all that.
It's and that Super Nintendo Land that's going, or Super Nintendo World that's going to open there, it is impressive. It is huge.
It's massive. It's big.
Bigger. It's bigger than the two parks that exist there. And to kind of add a little bit more color, where Epic Universe is, it is across the street from the Orange County Convention Center.
Yeah,
it's huge district with
now, guys, I've got a message.
Hotels. Yeah, You did.
I've got a message from Drunk 3PO regarding the domestic parks. Apparently, the domestic parks were down. I don't know if we covered this sufficiently, but apparently the domestic parks are actually down as a result of a decrease in Walt Disney World Resort attendance that was slightly offset by Disneyland Resort. This coming from Scott Guston, who is a frequent blogger of Disney Parks. And so we were positive about the theme parks, but perhaps we were a bit quick to draw that conclusion as people are getting into the higher resolution thinking about this and looking at the language that's in the report. It turns out that Disney World is down itself, that being the crown jewel of everything the Walt Disney Company has. Disneyland came up a bit and helped offset that, hide it a little. But if Disney World is now beginning to go down, note this would be very important. Disney World itself is so vastly so large compared to Disneyland and everything else. And Disney World has been the impervious place that has been completely invulnerable to Disney's mistakes. People just go there no matter what. If it starts to drop, that would be truly that would be the big one. That would indicate. Yeah. So all this other stuff is sort of like, really bad issues for the company. But if Disney World itself is pulled out, that's the foundation of the company's revenue.
I didn't agree, especially as I'm sorry, Bally.
I was going to say I didn't grab the attendance numbers. Their revenues were up, and their per capita spending was up. But if their attendance is down in their biggest park, then yes, that's a problem. Now, Disney, like I said, the parks were the only thing in that earnings call that was a positive, at least overall. Is there some nuance in there as far as warning signs like that? Yeah. And I clicked over to Twitter and I saw where Jay had sent me that, which, by the way, Drunk had a link for this show all day. I know he just likes to listen, but he had a link to come here. So, any case, Lorena, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's two different models when it comes to park attendance when you're comparing Disneyland to Disney World. Disneyland, most of their attendance is from locals, the local area. So they have not many people are flying in internationally to go to Disneyland. Disney World, on the other hand, that model is built on a whole bunch of tourists coming from the Northeast, which is the reason why I'm from Philly. Disney owns Action News, a stake in Action News. Okay. all these Disney ads, that was like a rite of passage to come from the Northeast down I-95 to Disney World. Then you also have foreign tourism. Britain, number one, and I believe Japan is number two of foreign tourists that are coming in. So Disney, basically for Disney World, you're talking about a lot of foreign and out-of-state tourism. It is not centrally located or convenient for a lot of local visitors to come to, unless you live like right, like where I do, 15 minutes from the park. So Disney World is taking a big hit. That is going to be a problem because, again, like Valiant has said and like Pro has said, that is the moneymaker for the rest of Disney.
Yeah. That and ESPN, right? I mean, that's the parks and resorts are the biggest revenue driver in terms of a dollar sense. ESPN certainly I think that's the margin sense, or I might have that flipped. But that being said, that's what's keeping them alive. And people ask all the time about, well, how do they keep pumping these movies out where they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars? Where they lose money even with a big box office like Wakanda Forever, or they lose money on Thor, or they lose money on Ant-Man for sure. They lose money on Lightyear. They lose money on Strange World. It looks like at this point they're going to lose money on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. How do they keep propping this up? Well, it's because the revenues and the positive ROI, the returns they get each and every quarter on the parks and the linear broadcasting, especially with live sports, that's what pays all the bills. And those revenues are, even in the peak year for Disney, 2019, where they had Avengers Endgame, right? And you had, they had all these big movies that year, 2018, 2019. The positive cash flows from theatrical revenue were like a bump on a frog's butt compared to the theme parks and live sports. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's how they keep doing it. That's how they can kind of bury these things in there and just and people on the earnings calls, the analysts, they don't really bring it up because it's never been a huge portion of Disney's income. What they're looking for is, well, merchandise sales and other things, ancillary products, parks and experiences. They sandwich all that in together to kind of hide all of these weak points. And they're going to sandwich them in even more now to hide these weak points. But over the long term, it's relatively unsustainable.
Renegade.